Hello, listener, and welcome to Jumpers for Goalposts. The sun is rising on a beautiful Parisian morning. The croissants are freshly baked, the coffee is brewed, and Taribo West is putting the finishing touches to his World Cup dreadlocks. That's right, today we're going back to France 98 for the greatest show on earth. Arguably the best World Cup of all time, this one has everything. No shortage of drama, amazing goals, retro kits, and of course, the players. All the stars come out to play for this one. Ronaldo, Zidane, Bebeto, Beckham, Baggio, Bierhoff, and Batistuta. Try saying that 10 times fast. We look at the tournament's top matchups, the players who got big dream moves after France 98, and we have a special World Cup quiz. What are we waiting for? Let's get going. These next two men love football stickers. Yes, they do. They love stickers so much that they like to have their Panini sticker album by their bed when they sleep. Their obsession collecting football stickers has reached new heights recently when Dan was spotted walking down a supermarket aisle, pointing at products, shouting, "Got, need." They are Daniel McIntyre and Connor Elliott, better known as Dan and Mush The Match Man. Dan, how are we doing?
Doing great, Stephen. Thank you very much for that introduction.
Are you pumped for this France 98 review?
I've been looking forward to this one. Although I remember World Cup 94, 98 is very, very fresh in the head. I remember quite a bit of it, so really looking forward to delving in to everything about it.
I just want to give a wee look into what life was like in 98 for the recently 11-year-old Dan. At the start of the tournament, I think it kicked off on the 10th of June. We were still in school. By the end of the tournament, school was out. The summer was in full flow. Although when you're in school, I'm guessing your head was already gone by the time the tournament had started. What was the summer of 98 like for a young Dan?
The summer of 98 didn't start off too well. I actually tried to buy a Scotland jersey for the World Cup and it wasn't a my size. And the lady in the sports shop convinced me to buy the Holland top, which I did. And from then, that day on, I have adopted the Dutch since France 98. So it started off with not getting the jersey that I liked, but ended up having a great relationship with the Dutch and was really looking forward to France 98. My two favourite players at the time would have been Ronaldo and Dennis Bergkamp, so I was really, really looking forward to seeing them.
Mush, were you allowed to stay up for these late games in France, or was your dad telling you get up to bed?
Oh yes, Percy. The curfew was extended out even for those games that went to extra time. It was the summer. How can you say no to a boy just looking to watch the beautiful game?
Lovely stuff. So, Mush, I can see you're wearing a fine retro World Cup 98 shirt there. Can you describe what you have got on for our listeners?
Yes, Steve, I can. A rich dark navy kit with checkered red and white down the sides, a white collar with a beautiful trim around the side of it, an iconic strip sponsored by Lotto, David Zucker, and Boxic come to mind. The side that wore this, they destroyed Romania, demolished the Germans in it, and they finished third at this World Cup. It is Croatia away.
Oh, is this an eBay find, Mush, or is this one you've had in your collection for a long time?
This is an eBay find, Steve. This was a haggling with a man from the Czech Republic. He wanted a Poborski top in exchange for it. I conned him off and I got this top instead.
Fine piece of haggling going on there. Superb stuff. Dan, as normal, you've got some sort of retro jersey on. You might have two on there. Can't see it. Looks a bit baggy. What have you got on for us today?
Oh, Stephen, very difficult to choose a kit from France 98. Absolutely wonderful kits. But today I went for a bright yellow kit with black and green colours with a reggae influence. With a lovely black collar, big and beautiful, that you could wear up on a cold day when it got past 8 p.m. and you were still playing football. It is a little bit of taste of the Caribbean. It is the Jamaica home kit for the World Cup 98. And I've chosen this kit today because in 1998, I did not even realise Jamaica had a football team. I only thought they had a bobsleigh team. So I've went for the Jamaica kit. It's worn by Premier League cult heroes as well. Robbie Earle, Doral Powell, Frank, Owen Goal Sinclair, Dion Burton, Marcus Gale, and Ricardo Gardner. So today I've went for the Jamaica home kit from France 98. It's bold, bright, and it's beautiful, Stephen.
It's a lovely strip worn by that great bunch of championship players who managed to play at the World Cup. Dan, it's such a nice strip. Would you consider getting it in long sleeve?
Stephen, I would never consider getting a jersey in long sleeve. I've only ever owned one long sleeve jersey, and to this day, I regret that decision.
Okay, great stuff. So before we delve deep into the tournament, it would be rude not to talk about the teams that probably should have been there, had decent enough qualifying campaigns, may have got to the playoffs, but eventually just came up short, or in some cases absolutely blew it. Dan, you took a look at the teams that probably should have been in France. Who have we got?
Yes, thank you, Stephen. Yes, quite a few upsets on the road to France. Some teams possibly unlucky, some possibly complacent. Just a touch on Africa, Asia and Oceania. No real surprises from Africa with Nigeria, Tunisia, South Africa, Cameroon, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Japan all qualifying, along with Iran, who luckily defeated Terry Venables' Gadaimite, Australia, on away goals on aggregate in a 3-3 draw over 2 legs. Mexico and USA would be joined by the surprise package, Jamaica.
Mush, a very big surprise here. El Tel actually managing Australia, never mind what actually happened after. Did El Tel just watch a few episodes of Neighbours, see Carl Kennedy and Susan and think, I fancy a bit of that? Or do you think he was offered a lucrative deal to go down under?
I think a bit of both, Steve. I think he loved watching Australian soaps. He also loved the coin. But the main reason he went there was he loved kangaroos. And he actually purchased one and called it Big Carlton Palmer.
Ooh, a fine name for a kangaroo.
And that is actually true. In South America, there was no real upsets in the South America qualification. Brazil automatically qualified back then as holders. The most unlucky team was Norberto Solano's Peru, who missed out on goal difference to a Chile team led by Zamorano and Salas. And it would be the goals from those two players that really decided that goal difference. Zamorano being the top goal scorer in the South American qualifying overall with 12 goals. And behind him, in second place, was Salas on 11 goals. Closest to them was Colombia's Faustino Esprilla on 7 goals. Argentina topped South America overall, winning the table quite comfortably, but they had an array of stars to call upon.
Mush, obviously you're a huge fan of Nobby Nuts, Nobby Solano, a player you followed very closely. Were you gutted to find out that he wouldn't be making his way to France?
I was, Steve. I felt he deserved it. He had done a lot for football, a talented player, but he just couldn't carry the whole nation on his back. As Dano says, Zamorano and Salas punished him, and they done it in goal difference. Sorry for Nobby, but he still got his nuts intact.
And over to Europe, which we would have been most familiar with at the time. And so the biggest upset on paper for me was Sweden failing to qualify. They had came third in the USA. They had Henrik Larsson, Alexandersson, Jasper Blomqvist. They had a good, solid team, a good, solid base, and they were pipped by Scotland, which on paper would surprise you, but Scotland ended up having a great campaign. Sweden just faltered in the last couple of games, dropping 4 points in their last 3 games, so missed out on that. As well as that, Czech Republic failed to qualify, who were the finalists of Euro 96, led by Poborski, Patrick Berger, Pavel Nedved. So them missing out was a shock, although they were pipped by Yugoslavia. So there was a big rivalry there between those two countries, and those games would have been heated. Closer to our doorstep, our beloved Republic of Ireland beaten by Belgium in a playoff 3-2. Not so much an upset, but possibly Republic of Ireland should have qualified straight away. As well as that, Rui Costa and Luis Figo's Portugal failed to qualify, being pipped by Ukraine, who also later failed to qualify as they were defeated in a playoff Top scorer in the European qualification scene was Patrick Mijatovic of Real Madrid with 14 goals. He also scored the winning goal in the 1998 Champions League final. So Yugoslavia had a real player on their hands there with him. In the Euro playoffs, Belgium, Croatia, Italy and Yugoslavia managed to qualify, with Yugoslavia beating Hungary over the two legs 12-1. What a victory that was, and certainly sending a message out on their way to France.
Hungary mustn't have been hungry enough, Dan.
Yugoslavia were absolutely starving.
Boys, I can remember being in a local pub when the Republic were knocked out by Belgium, and grown men in tears. This wasn't just a team not qualifying for France 98. This was a nation's hopes, as it would have been for a lot of countries. But after the success of USA 94 and bringing the nation together, this was hugely disappointing to not have the Republic of Ireland representing and really put a damper on things locally.
Oh, completely agree with that. I think as well we would have been expectant. You know, you had Italia 90, we qualified for 94. I just missed out in the playoff to a good Dutch team for Euro 96. So we would have been expecting. It was Mick McCarthy's first campaign, but there was still a lot of good players about, and he was blending in the youth. I think Roy Keane missed most of the campaign with his cruciate injury, and there was one or two problems with Cascarino, Niall Quinn. So they were kind of missed in terms of focal points. But overall, disappointing. Belgium were no great shakes. Probably should have got through, particularly was having one of the games at Lansdowne Road. Should have made more of being at home and maybe getting another goal there. So they're very disappointing not to have them at the World Cup, especially France. After USA, fans didn't have too far to travel, and they would have been really they would have been making plans to travel to France and stay in there, much like Euro 2016 and having a bit of carnival atmosphere.
Yeah. Mush, obviously one of your highlights from USA 94 is the wonderful Swedish ladies that graced the cameramen every time they panned round. What did you do during France 98 to get your Swedish lady fix?
It was the Jamaican women, Steve. Big Babylons.
Okay, good stuff. So France 98 obviously was a tournament full of stars, but there was a few stars who were left at home for various reasons. Mush, you've had a look at that. Who did not make it to France 98?
In at number 5 is Japan's Koichi Miura, an unfamiliar household name, but you may remember him now as he's still the oldest active professional footballer in today's modern game, playing in his 50s. In 1987, he'd scored 18 goals in 19 games to help Japan qualify for the tournament, but the head coach said he didn't know how to use him.
That is shocking management. I can't believe an international manager, cannot make space for a man who scored 18 goals in qualifying for him. There must have been something else to that. Terrible decision.
Who's at number 4, Mush?
Number 4, Steve, is Antonio Conte, Juventus captain, a leader on and off the pitch, a box-to-box midfielder with nearly every attribute in the book that is required to play for your country. He was captain of Juventus that won the Scudetto that season, and he led them to the Champions League final. He could play anywhere across the midfield, very disciplined, great mentality, tough cookie to crack, but instead they opted for Luigi Di Baggio. Only one winner for me, and that would be Conte.
Dan, what happened here? Was Conte having a hair transplant this summer, or was there just too many? Was there too many good midfielders in this Italian midfield?
Oh, I'm really surprised at that. I would have assumed he was in the squad there. That's very interesting one, because he did go to the 94 World Cup and 96 Euros. I'm surprised at that. I think possibly that he was a little bit too similar to maybe Albertini, who was starting, and they didn't bring them both. Just, I don't know, when Di Biagio was younger, they had Dino Baggio in the squad as well. So maybe it was just a case of literally can't take any more centre midfielders, and he was just very unlucky.
At number 3, Steve, is Romario. Now, this one may be debatable as he was injured, supposedly, a muscular injury, which had ruled him out. But Romario had said he was fit at the time of selection and would have loved to play some part of the finals. After being such a massive part of Brazil's success in 1984, probably one of the best strikers in the 90s, a man who put Big Brucey to sleep in 1984 at the new camp, surely Romario could have been used rather than Edmundo. This will lead on to later on conspiracy theories.
Oh, I look forward to listening to those. I've actually seen the Romario video on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's when he actually gets injured and they hold a press conference and he actually breaks down in tears, like floods of tears. So bit hard to then believe that he's declared himself fit.
I think so. He would have been desperate to play because he was still unbelievable. He was still a world-class striker, a great finisher. Him and Ronaldo had a brilliant relationship. I don't think Ronaldo quite had the same relationship with Bebeto or Edmundo, to be honest. So Romario was a loss to that Brazil squad, and I personally would have took a punt on him. If it's, you have a 23-man squad, you've always room for a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
And could you gamble on Romario being fit for, say, the quarterfinals onwards? I'd have took him. I would have took him, but they didn't. So very sad for him.
Mush, would you have taken him, or are you still a Bebeto Edmundo backup man?
No, I would back Donald there. I would have brought him, even if he was only 30% fit. I would have took him. He definitely could have come off the bench and done something. At number 2, Steve, is Paul Gascoigne. Now, media didn't help Gazza as they floated images of him eating a kebab with the big breakfast host, Chris Evans, a week before the squad was announced. Now, the man had helped them qualify. He was a hero in nearly every English fan's eyes. Euro 96, that goal against the Scots. Granted, he had issues in his personal life, but he had 57 caps and 10 goals for his country. During the season, he was playing for Dano's second favourite club, Middlesbrough, in the old Division 1 and helped them gain promotion. Personally speaking, I would have brought him into the squad as it's Paul Gascoigne.
Mush, was he here a victim of the old, you're not playing for a big club and you're playing in Division 1, which we now know is the Championship? Did Hoddle have a touch of that about him, do you think? Or was it just too big a personality to have on the bench and bring on and maybe a bit disruptive?
There's a few things, Steve, leading to it. One was his personal life, which we all know about. Gazza had a lot of issues. 2, playing in the Championship, maybe, but then they called up Paul Merson from the English squad. 3 was Hoddle and Gazza never seen eye to eye, and Hoddle was out to make a statement supposedly when he got the job, and when he announced that Gazza wasn't making the squad, Gazza trashed Glenn Hoddle's hotel room.
Dan, if you were in Hoddle's position, would you have taken him, or would you have been a steady Eddie and went with the Ensign Batty?
It's a very similar one to Romario, and again, I have to go back to taking a little bit of a gamble here.
You're a gambling man
in the squad. Gambling man when it comes to having a maverick in my squad of 23 players. Batty, Ince, they're going. Doesn't matter about Gazza or who doesn't go. Them 2 are going. Beckham's going, right? Paul Merson's going, okay? But he brings Rob Lee. He doesn't play at all. Now, he's possibly your 5th choice midfielder there, Rob Lee, but you're not have brought Gazza there and just said to him, Paul, sit down. You're not 100% fit. You're not 100% focused because your personal life, but I'm with you. I'm going to bring you. You're going to be my 23rd man. And if we go to an extra time or we're in the last 20 and we're drawn and we're on top, you're the man that's going to change things for us. But as well, you have to see it from Hoddle's point of view. He basically was afraid of taking Gazza to France and the man going AWOL,
Yeah, which he would have, no doubt, but he may have also produced a couple of brilliant moments. So
yeah,
it's we'll never know, lads. We'll never know.
We'll never know. It's a tough one, and we're all Gazza fans and fans of that type of player. It's just very unfortunate.
Mush, who is your number 1?
My number 1, Steve, is Fernando Redondo. The Argentinian deep line ball playing midfielder. Very underrated. He was elegant. As I said, a deep line playmaker, great vision, a peach of a left foot, a key part of the Real Madrid team that season, which had won the Champions League. Surely he could have joined the likes of Simeone and Varane, but there's a bit of a clash here. with him and the manager, and the manager stated that his long hair was a reason for him not being included in the squad.
No.
Now, if you ask me, that's a load of boo hockey.
Well, what about Batistuna?
Well, there you go, Steve. Maybe because he were tied it up. I don't know. But Fernando Redondo...
Did he need a McDonald's hairnet to go to France 98?
Maybe. Or a muzzle.
That's the strangest reason for leaving a player out of a squad I've ever heard.
Sometimes it'll be, rather than the player, the person may be excluded. So the manager and Redondo clearly clashed because Redondo had represented Argentina at the 94 World Cup. Personally speaking, I would have brought him. I would have just had it out with him. Considering the other names that were in the Argentinian squad, they had Berti, Gallard, Estrada. Redondo's better than them three put together.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I would have busted me hump to get him called up. So he's my number one, Fernando Redondo.
I'm very, very surprised that he wasn't pushed to bring Redondo. He was a world-class midfielder, and he was still better than what even had starting. You know, you could argue he was just as good as Simeone and Varane. So really, really unlucky, and no surprise that he's the number one shock in amongst the squads. Yeah, I can't believe that. I can't believe the reasoning. Long hair, you having a laugh?
So now it's time to delve into how the home nations fared at France 98. We had Scotland and England representing. Mush, I believe you have a special correspondent who's back for us this week.
Yes, Stephen, I do. It's my good friend, top journalist, and all-around amazing bloke. It's my friend and yours, Chip Dunleavy. Over to you, Chip.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. I've taken my vitamins and said my prayers, brothers, and I am pumped for France 98. I can't talk about your home nations without mentioning mine. After USA 94 and the success of reaching the last 16 before a narrow defeat to eventual winners Brazil, I was hopeful we would win France 98. How wrong was I, man? We played like a bunch of losers. The US got dumped out in the group stages after only notching one goal in a 2-1 defeat to the mighty soccer nation of Iran. I honestly don't know why they didn't send the females to compete. Coach Steve Sampson's tactics absolutely sucked. He should have played both Brad and Casey in goals. So it was bye-bye to the American Eagles, but the Bonnie Scotland and England soccer clubs had a serious chance to represent. The Tartan Army Soccer Club got off to a great start against Brazil. Joan Collins pulled up his kilt and converted a penalty kick in the 38th minute to give the haggis-eating Scots a chance. They eventually lost 2-1, but they held their heads high. They managed to nick a point in the next game against the Vikings to have a chance of qualifying against Morocco. Before the Morocco game, toothless shooter Craig Burley decided to dye his hair blonde at the salon so he could look just like his hero, Colin Hendry. And damn, did he look good. All that bleach must have went to his head though. Morocco destroyed the Scots 3-0 and Burley was sent off in the 53rd minute. A sad day for the Tartan Army Soccer Club and the last World Cup appearance for veteran goalie Jim Layadon. He was 54 years old. Now it's over to the England Soccer Club, who were the last remaining hope. Hopes were high going into this one, as the Four Lions managed to win Le Tournoi the year previous. They got off to a great start against Tunisia, a 2-0 win, picking up 2 points with goals from Scholes and on-field captain Alan Shearer. They sucked in their next matchup, going down 2-1 to Transylvania, leaving it all to do on matchup 3 against the crime syndicate Colombia. 2 first-quarter goals from sick-bag Darren Anderton and an amazing field goal from Golden Balls himself, it's Beckham, meant England reached the playoffs. Now, their playoff match against Argentina started well. Kindergartner Michael Owen tortured in an aging defense and scored one of the goals of the decade. It would all go pear-shaped soon after, though, when Golden Balls flicked his foot at Diego Simon, like you would flick a booger at a friend, and got a straight red flag. England down to 10. They fought on bravely, but came up short on penalty kicks. reliable franchise player David Bat-Eye missed and sent soccer home. Just like the 4 Lions fans wanted. 10 brave Lions, 1 dumbass golden ball. I'm only joking, David. I love you, man. And your wife. I have all her music. I'm Chip Dunleavy. It's back to you in the studio, Simon.
Mush, where did you meet Chip again?
Yes, Daniel. I met Chip in my local video rental shop when both our hands fought for the last copy of Planes, Trains and Automobiles. Let's just say I got the last copy, but he got a friend.
Brilliant. What a story. It's great to have him on board.
Okay, lads. The home nations, mixed bag. Great start by Scotland. They nearly did beat Brazil, Dan.
They nearly did beat Brazil. Brazil were a wee bit off on the day, sort of opening game rust. And at the time of John Collins' equaliser from the spot, they're well on top. And they had a good spell in the second half as well. Kevin Gallagher, he was getting a bit of joy against the Brazilian back four. Aldair wasn't quite the man he was at centre half. But in, classic Scotland fashion, to score an own goal and lose the game, it's just
so unlucky.
You just look back at the history of Scotland at major tournaments, and they do so well when they do qualify, and they just have no luck. Really, really no luck at all. Or the other side of it is going down 3-0 to Morocco after giving themselves a fighting chance in their second game, drawing 1-1 with a very good Norway team. They had an opportunity against Morocco and they absolutely choked on the night, thumped really. And as Chip says, Jim Leighton, a couple of howlers and just a really poor performance and went out kind of flat fashion.
Mush, were you a follower of Scotland during this World Cup? Did you want to see them well, or were you laughing from your grave?
No, Steve. I remember this was the first game of the tournament, and I was cheering the Scots on. I knew they probably weren't going to get anything off the Brazilians, but they had some big characters. John Collins, Colin Hendry and co. At the time, Scottish football was really well with Celtic and Rangers. They had just especially Rangers attracted a lot of good players to come. So I was cheering the Scots on.
Good stuff. Do you think, speaking of missing players, Scotland, famously, Ali McCoist was left at home. Do you think that was a bad decision? Did they miss that sort of target man up front?
Yes, Steve. I think they did personally miss Ali McCoist. I know he might have been aging at the time, but he still is a goal scorer. Craig Brown openly admitted after the tournament that it was the wrong decision to not include him in the squad. Whether or not he would have made a difference, I don't know, but still I would have brought Big McCoist, as you never know, he could have bagged something from the bench even. Again,
Dan, you hit the nail on the head. It was the hard luck story for Scotland, but obviously great to see them qualifying for a tournament in the upcoming summer. So good luck to the Scots. Moving on to England, the 3 Lions, not 4, Chip. They had a realistic opportunity going into the World Cup after faring pretty well in Euro 96. They're still talking about that. Mush, were you getting carried away like much of the England fans and thinking that England could go deep into the tournament, potentially even win it?
I thought they could have went deep in the tournament, Steve, but they never impressed in the group stage, and the same old outcome with them. They just bottled it. I think it went wrong when they played Paul Scholes out on the wing, which didn't help. And again, if they would have brought Gazza, could have changed the game.
A wee touch of hard luck here as well for England, Dan. Sol Campbell had a goal disallowed, which was a perfectly good goal. And they fought very well to hang on against a very, very good Argentina team, even with 10 men.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you that age-old question. If Beckham doesn't get sent off, are we looking at a completely different game?
Without a doubt, I thought Beckham was running the game. He forced his way back into Glenn Hoddle's starting lineup and was playing alongside Ince in midfield. And it was Hoddle, he was a good England manager. He's brave, 3-4-1-2 or 3-5-2, whatever way you want to call it, freeing up his best players. And I think the squad was strong. There was a lot of winners in that squad. I thought they were better in Argentina on the night. Absolutely robbed with the Sol Campbell goal. However, I don't know if they would have went much further than that. They would have faced Holland in the quarterfinals, Brazil in the semis, and possibly then France in the final. So I don't think they would have won the tournament, but I think on the night, overall, they were better than Argentina. The 10 men after Beckham was sent off did really, really well to change the system a little bit. Hoddle swapped Shearer and Owen in 10, 15-minute spells where one of them would go to the right wing and one of them would go up front just to keep his best players on and sort of reshape the team. Unlucky on the night, but, once it goes to penalties, you just don't fancy them. I don't know what was going on with practice. I don't know why they didn't have at least 8, 9 takers lined up. I don't know what happens. I don't know how that doesn't get organised. So
I think Michael Owen famously said that they didn't practice penalties, and that he actually asked Alan Shearer where he should put it, which obviously Michael Owen is a young striker at this stage, but quite worrying when you're asking somebody else where I should put a penalty.
Very worrying. And Paul Merson has a similar story in his autobiography. He talks about how nervous he was going up to hit his penalty. Now, you would be naturally nervous, but you have to create some sort of environment where we might get a penalty shootout here in the knockout phase. Let's have at least 9 takers so that we are, no matter who's on the pitch, we are covered. And when Glenn Hoddle's having to go around and asking boys if they fancy it, like Paul Ince-Batty, who probably didn't really fancy it, but just
they didn't want to say no.
Didn't want to say no. And ultimately, they're the 2 players that missed for them.
Was Merson nervous, or was he hanging from the night before and a bit shaky? Let's face it, he didn't think he'd be on the pitch at that stage.
No, I don't think he thought he would have been on the pitch. But maybe a bit of both. Who knows? God knows what them boys got up to over there.
Oh, good stuff. We will be back with a massive quarter-final between Holland and Argentina. But first, here is a lovely little goal from Reggae Boy and Wimbledon Crazy Gang member, Robbie Earle.
Jamaica, they've got the ball here on the left-hand side. That's a red stripe of a cross. Robbie Earle with a power in and a goal! It's 1-1. Big Robbie Earle has equalised for Jamaica. The Reggae Boys have set off a festival of love in the crowd. They now have a goal at a World Cup to go with the bobsleigh team. All thanks to Robbie Earle, who is now dancing with the Jamaican team in front of the crowd. Upstairs for thinking, downstairs for dancing. Thank you, Jamaica.
So now we're going to delve a little bit deeper into one of the games of the tournament, and Dan's second team, sometimes his first, depending on what mood he's in. It's Holland versus Argentina. A brilliant quarterfinal, Dan. What went down here?
Brilliant game. 2 teams, 2 all-star lineups, first and foremost. Two very attacking sides as well. Just want to touch on the lineups here. Well, the game was played on Independence Day, 1998, in Marseille. 55,000 fans in attendance. Both teams playing a 4-4-2. Argentina with Marcus Roa in goal, Sensini, Ayala, Chamot, Almeida at the back. Midfield of Ortega, Veron, Javier Zanetti, Diego Simeone, and a front 2 of Claudio Lopez and Gabriel Bati Batistuta. What a team. The Dutch 4-4-2 as well, although God knows what system they were playing at certain times during the games. Van der Sar in goals. Reisiger, Stam, Frank de Boer, Arthur Newman at the back. Midfield of Philip Cocu, Wim Jonk, Edgar Davids and Ronald de Boer, Frank's twin brother. And a front 2 of Dennis the Iceman Bergkamp and Patrick Kluivert. Absolutely brilliant game. Kicked off 2 very early goals. Patrick Kluivert gave the Dutch the lead after 12 minutes. A great move. Ronald de Boer, Santi and a couple of the Argentina midfielders playing a lovely ball in the Bergkamp. And just as the ball's beating Bergkamp, he readjusts his body and puts a little header in the path of Kluivert, who finishes clinically past Roa to put the Dutch 1-0 up. You'd be thinking here from then on the Dutch are going to push on. Argentina are knackered from the battle they had with England. But no, Argentina say, not today. We're still fighting for this World Cup. And they equalise in the 17th minute with Juan Veron showing us a little bit of magic with a defence splitting pass which cut Cocu, Stam and De Boer in half, played through Claudio Lopez, who not only finished well, but nutmegged Van der Sar en route to goal. 1-1 at half-time. Much of the rest of the first half was the teams trying to settle themselves down after the frantic pace of the opening 20 minutes. All right, so 1-1 at the break. Same as in the second half, a battle. Argentina battling away, getting a little bit niggly there, led by Simeone. You know, you can see it now, what he was up to. The Dutch had the better of the chances and a little bit more of the possession, but didn't create anything clear-cut. The game takes a turn on 76 minutes when Arthur Newman cuts Simeone in half to get his second yellow of the game. Nobody complained. Newman walked off knowing that he had done the deed and had to go. Couple of minutes left, and this is where the game completely turns. It turns in the space of 120 seconds. In the 87th minute of the match, Ariel Ortega, the new Maradona for the France 98 Argentina squad, gets the ball inside the box. He takes on Jaap Stam, beats him, but instead of taking the shot, he dives over Stam's leg, much to the disgust of the Dutch players, in particular Edwin van der Sar, who runs out of his goal and starts shouting at Ortega. While Ortega is getting to his feet, he headbutts Edwin van der Sar. Now, Ortega is about 5'6'7". Van der Sar, obviously, well over 6 foot. So you'll see it's like an old wrestling move where he just stands up and headbutts him with the top of his head, catches Van der Sar in the chin, and knocks Edwin on his back, basically. Now, maybe Edwin a little bit theatrical as well, knowing what could come from it. Ortega gets a straight red. Not only does he dive, but he headbutts Van der Sar. From the resulting free kick, Van der Sar simply taps the ball to Frank de Boer, who carries the ball about 20 yards up the pitch. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees Dennis Bergkamp. He plays a 50-yard ball. And I'm going to say a 50-yard pass because it's deliberately played to Dennis Bergkamp and the area that he's in. It's not just a long ball with a couple of minutes to spare. It's a brilliant, brilliant pass from Frank de Boer, and he had that in his locker with his left foot. Bergkamp unbelievably pulls the ball down with his first touch. With his second touch, he uses his studs to poke the ball through the legs of Ayala, and then with the outside of his right foot, puts the ball in the top corner. 2 minutes to go. The game is done. Argentina are finished. They are out on their feet. The Dutch have won the game. They see it out, and they get to the next stage, which is their semi-final, where they go on to play Brazil. An unbelievable moment. One of the goals, if not the goal of the competition, to win it. And it really was a brilliant, brilliant match to watch. And I would watch the match again at any time in terms of World Cup games. It was brilliant. I think the Dutch deserved to go through on the day. Argentina deserved to go out after luckily beating England, as we've touched on earlier on. And the way they play acted and behaved during the game, the Dutch thoroughly deserved to go through to the semi-finals.
Mush, is this Dutch team a World Cup winning Dutch team? Is it good enough to win a World Cup?
Yes, Steve. Jaap Stam, De Boer, Davids, Kluivert, Bergkamp. I'm sure as well too, Donna will list out the people that were sitting on the bench that day. I thought they were going to go far. Obviously, they bumped into Brazil, but the Dutch teams from about 97, 98 onwards to about 2006, they were always in the mix. Some tournaments, they always flattered to deceive. So I don't know if that was a wee bit of a mentality thing, a bit like England as well. But certainly this Dutch team, I thought they definitely were within a shout of winning it.
So as Dan mentioned in his little coverage there, Mush, the Argies were dead on their feet, particularly after the hard game that they had against England. Holland went down to 10 men, and the Argies really didn't have anyone to be able to turn the screw, which brings me back to maybe the suggestion that someone who is in a deep line playmaker role, I don't know, someone like Ronaldo, for example, could he have made the difference here, particularly with legs going?
Certainly, Steve. When you have an extra man on the pitch, you either use it up front or use it in midfield, because your opponents, they're a man late, so you're not going to bring on another defender. To think that he wasn't there because he had long hair is preposterous. I have no sympathy for Argentina, but I do for Ronaldo.
Dan, you have mentioned to me many times about how Holland should have won this World Cup. You're a very bitter man. I can still see it in your eyes after the semi-final defeat to Brazil, when really I do think Holland were the better team. I'll give you that. Is this the best Holland team that's ever graced a World Cup? I know there's been previous Holland sides that have got to the final, but really they should have got the job done here.
I think they should have got the job done. I think they should have won it. Thierry Henry has went on record and saying that they were actually relieved when Brazil won the semi-final. The French squad, they didn't want to play Holland in the final. They feared them more. I think squad-wise as well, I just named the 11 earlier on in the Argentina team. We talk about Ronaldo maybe possibly coming on for Argentina, but the Dutch, from an attacking standpoint, had Van Bronckhorst on the bench, Seedorf, Mark Overmars, Zenden, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, and Pierre Van Hooijdonk to call upon. I think they had the strongest squad. I think Hiddink struggled to get the balance right in midfield. They could have done with a natural winger. They used Kaku quite a bit on the left wing in the tournament, rather than Overmars or Zenden. And Seedorf was battling it out with Davids, whereas I probably would have played the two of them rather than Wim Jonk. So there was ways in which I think they could have made the team even better than Hiddink's strongest 11. In regards to the semi-final, it goes to penalties. The Dutch at that point didn't have a great record of penalties. Taffarel saves two, one from Kaku and one from Ronald de Boer, and they're out. They play a third place playoff then against Croatia, and by then they had checked out, and Croatia beat them 2-1. A real missed opportunity for the Dutch, considering the squad that they had and the individual players that they had on the bench as well to come on and make a difference. Maybe the balance just wasn't quite what it should have been.
They checked out and went on holiday just before their third place playoff against Croatia, and luckily Edgar Davids finally got to put those sunglasses to good use.
This week's Maverick of the Week is the one and only Dennis Bergkamp, an absolute football legend, an icon of our generation. I've been looking forward to talking about Dennis. I thought he would have came a little bit further down the line, but when it was France 98, in the year 1998 that he had as well as an individual footballer, I'm very excited to talk about Dennis and all that he achieved in his career and the honours and teams that he played in and for. Started his career at Ajax, was part of a famous Ajax academy setup, was one of their products. Broke in the team in 1986 as a young man and stayed there until 1993, and did really, really well with Ajax, scoring a bag full of goals. And of course, Ajax being the club that they are, they will ultimately sell their star players in order to just not so much survive, but keep the club sustainable. And they really pump the money then back into the youth and trying to buy players from, say, South America or Africa, and again seek the profits of those players. He made a big move in the summer of 93, moving to Inter Milan. Dennis was one of the best players in the world at this point, even early on in his career. Didn't quite work out for him in Italy, playing for an Inter Milan team with a completely different style of play to what he was used to at Ajax. Less time as well. The defences in Italy were very mean back then, very physical. Anytime a player like Bergkamp will get the ball, he's going to be kicked off the park or doubled or tripled up on, denying him space. Some people say he flopped in Italy. I would disagree with that. He did score goals, really playing well for them in the UEFA Cup, winning it with Inter Milan in 1994. And I actually remember Bergkamp as early as then. Inter Milan played Norwich City over two legs, and the games were on BBC One. And I remember him scoring against Norwich and playing against Norwich and really thinking he was a very, very good player even then. In the summer of 95, he pushes for a move out of Inter, and he surprisingly goes to Arsenal, who hadn't had a great 94-95 season. Arsenal, they were at the stage of rebuilding. And George Graham had moved on and whatnot. And Glenn Helder, a friend of Dennis Bergkamp from the Dutch national team that spoke to Dennis and recommended coming to North London. And there's a great story that Ian Wright tells about him rocking up to a petrol station in North London and seeing Dennis Bergkamp and just, going clean mad and go, "Are you signing for us, Dennis?" And Dennis just smiling at him, going, "Yes, I'm signing for you, Ian." That's an unbelievable random story. And he signs for Arsenal, and in terms of Arsenal, the rest is history. I talk about the year 1998 that he had. He was the player of the season in the Premier League. Arsenal won the double. He was a standout player, probably across Europe as well, along with Ronaldo and Zidane. Think back to 98, that hat-trick at Filbert Street. It's firm in my memory. It's shown so much. He really turned that Arsenal team into a classy team, complimented Ian Wright, complimented Petit and Vieira, and he was the link between the midfield and attack, and someone that Arsene Wenger trusted to lead the team. And he had a fantastic season, scoring 22 goals in all competitions and leading Arsenal, as I said, to double winning glory. Made the World Cup All-Star team in 98 as well, partnering Ronaldo up front, bringing the Dutch to the semi-final. We've touched on that magnificent goal that he scored against Argentina as well. Wasn't on the pitch when the semi-final went to penalties. Would he have taken one? Would he have scored one? We'll never know. Honours overall in his career. He was a Dutch Player of the Year in 92 and 93. 4 league titles across Ajax and Arsenal. Domestic Cups, 6 across Ajax and Arsenal. 2 UEFA Cups, 1 with Ajax in 92, 1 with Inter in 94. A Ballon d'Or runner-up in 1992. 3rd place in 1993. And he was placed in the English Football Hall of Fame in 2007. Retired in 2006. Sadly, in a bit of a sad way, sitting on the bench in the Parc de France in the Champions League final. I would have so loved for him to come on in that game and change the game much in the way that Henrik Larsson did for Barcelona. But circumstances went against him, with Arsenal going down to 10 men, and he wasn't able to get on the pitch. And that was Dennis's dream, that as well as Arsene Wenger's, to win the Champions League with Arsenal. In terms of his national career, 79 caps for Holland, 37 goals, played in Euro 92, World Cup 94, Euro 96, World Cup 98, retired after Euro 2000. Again, just missing out on glory, losing on penalties in a semi-final against Italy. And once again, he wasn't on the pitch for the penalty shootout. Would he have scored? Who knows? I think he would have. Moved back to Ajax, an assistant manager role, head coach role. He was part of the board with Edward van der Sar, the De Boer brothers, and Mark Overmars, really helping stabilise Ajax again and bring through players like Daley Blind and many others. Awarded the ultimate honour for any club legend when he was given the honour of having a statue of himself placed outside the Emirates Stadium and having a testimonial at the Emirates Stadium in 2007. Fans, players still talk about Dennis to this day. He's a player they've never truly replaced. When you think of the likes of Ozil, Wilshere, Fabregas, Ramsey, have all tried that playmaker role. They've never ever replaced Dennis Bergkamp, because there can only be one or two of this type of legendary footballer in that role, and Dennis was one of them in the 90s in the Premier League, along with Cantona and Zola. I love Dennis Bergkamp. I love talking about him. I love watching his goals, watching his play. He was a playmaker, a creator of goals, a cool customer, was always sharp in his performance on and off the pitch, sharp in training, had a great sense of humour as well. If you listen to his former teammates talk about him, his nickname was the Iceman, and it will continue to be. Hold him in very, very high regard. He was one of the legends of this competition as well. An honour to talk about him, and a magnificent opportunity for people and our listeners to look back and after this podcast, just YouTube Dennis Bergkamp and watch what you can about him. He was a fantastic footballer who achieved a lot in his career, left nothing on the pitch, and deserved everything that he achieved. He is my Maverick of the Week.
Thank you for that fascinating biography there, Dan, of Dennis Bergkamp, Dan's Maverick of the Week. And it's great to see now that Dan has made love to Janino and Dennis Bergkamp on the pod. Okay, coming up next, it is our special World Cup 98 quiz in Balls Against the Wall.
Those Against the Wolves?
This week's Balls Against the Wall quiz is sponsored by the ball that Tom Boyd put in his own net in the opening game of France 98 between Scotland and Brazil, leading to Scotland getting beat 2-1. If you want to see this ball, it is sitting on top of Ali McCoist's microwave, and he regularly sends pictures of it to former Scotland manager Craig Brown.
Oh, what a ball!
Yes, welcome to the special edition, the FIFA World Cup 98 Balls Against the Wall quiz. The quiz where I pit Dan against Mush to see who has the best football knowledge. Before we get started, we will have to have those player buzzers, and this week they are the 98 kit sponsors for the World Cup countries. Dan, what have you went with this week?
Kappa!
Mush, what have you went with?
Lotto.
Lotto. Well, let's hope you're lucky tonight. Dan, you are 2-0 up in the series, so Mush, you really need to get one back here. The prize this week is the number 2 single in the charts. That was the start of the tournament. I'm not sure either of you want this, but you're getting it anyway. It's Vindaloo by Fat Les was at number 2.
Oh, I want that tune. I want that tune.
Three Lions was at number 1.
Spicy curry.
So that will be wording its way to you. You do not get a Vindaloo with it. It is just the CD single, Dan. I have to inform you.
Get a slice of naan?
I can sort a bit of Peshwari out for you.
Thank you.
Okay, good stuff. As ever, lads, you are against the clock, and you will know when the quiz is over when you hear this noise.
Absolute load of nonsense. Absolute load of nonsense.
We have been very fortunate to get our good friend Ua Cantona back to do the scores. He wasn't doing anything else anyway. He wasn't at France 98.
Eric, how you doing? What did you get up to at the weekend?
I am Cantona.
Okay, great stuff, Eric. So Eric's taking the scores for us.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Ready.
Question 1. What bird was the official mascot for France 98?
Kappa.
Lotto.
Yes, Dan.
Pigeon.
No, incorrect. Mush.
Peacock.
No, it wasn't a peacock either. It was a cockerel, a French cockerel. Question 2. Who scored the most goals in the tournament?
Lotto.
Yes, Mush.
Hakan Sukur.
Very good. Who managed Italy at the tournament?
Kappa.
Yes, Dan.
Cesare Maldini.
Correct. Who scored the equalising goal for Norway against Brazil in the group stages?
Kappa.
Lotto.
Yes, Dan.
Tor Andre Flo.
Correct. What was the main colour of Scotland's away jersey for the tournament?
Lotto.
Yes, Mush.
Yellow.
Correct.
Oh.
What sports brand made the kit?
Lotto.
Yes, Mush.
Theodora.
Incorrect. Dan?
Umbro.
Correct.
Oh.
What was the name of the Danish referee who sent off David Beckham?
Kappa.
Lotto.
Yes, Dan.
Thomas Gravison.
Incorrect. Mush.
Thomason.
No, it was Kim Milton.
David. Danish names that.
David Batty and which other player missed penalties against Argentina?
Kappa.
Yes, Dan.
Paulins.
Correct. Who is the only European player who played at France 98 to still be playing in the top flight today?
Lotto.
Yes, Mush.
Buffon.
Correct.
Brilliant. Whoa.
What colour did Taribo West dye his dreadlocks for the tournament?
Kappa.
Lotto.
Yes, Dan.
Green.
Correct. Who scored a brace for Brazil in the quarter-final against Denmark?
Kappa.
Yes, Dan.
Rivaldo.
Correct. What player replaced Ronaldo when he was mysteriously missing from the World Cup final team sheet?
Lotto.
Yes, Mush.
Edmundo.
Correct. Name any unused substitute for France in the final who played for Arsenal.
Kappa.
Yes, Dan.
Fiora.
Incorrect. Mush.
Wiltord.
No, incorrect. We were looking for either Thierry Henry or Robert Pires.
Oh!
Absolute load of nonsense. Absolute load of nonsense.
We are out of time, lads. It was another tight affair.
Tough quiz this week.
Were
Very
Good
correct.
questions. Good questions.
Oh, it was another tight one. Let's see. Let's go over to Ua Cantona for the final scores. Eric, what were the scores? Daniel 6, Connor 4. Okay, so Dan coming up with another victory. It's 3-0 in the series. Will there be a brush? Mush, you better stop the brush.
Send me that Vindaloo over.
You've won the battle, Dan, but you'll not win the war.
Oh, fight and talk from Mush there. Okay, Dan, that is 3 singles you've got now. You have Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears. You have Whenever, Wherever by Shakira. And now Vindaloo by Fat Les. Your record collection is looking mighty tasty.
I'm building something special here. It's just nice to get a little bit of Vindaloo there after Britney and Shakira, you know? Wash it down.
Okay, we will be back with Mush the Match Man for his match of the week. It's a semi-final between France and Croatia, and it's coming right up after this wonderful goal by Dennis the Iceman Bergkamp.
The Dutch have the ball. De Boer has it, the good one. He's launched a pinpoint pass from inside his own half. It's floated into the Argentinian box. It's been pulled out of the sky by Bergkamp. Goal! Oh my word! The Iceman has won it with a strike to sink the Argies. Oh my God, we'll be watching this goal for years to come. Dennis Bergkamp, he's laying in the sun, basking in front of the Dutch army, which looks like the inside of a Jaffa Cake factory. What a goal from Dennis Bergkamp! Holland have done it!
It's match of the week! Bloody hell!
Yes, welcome to Match of the Week. It's all over at the Stade de France in the big semi-final between France and Croatia. But don't worry, we've got Mush the Matchman standing by to tell us what exactly went down. Mush, what happened?
Yes, Stephen. La Blues have reached the final of the World Cup in their own backyard, thanks to a brace from Lilian Thuram. They will be partying in Paris, bouncing in Bordeaux, madness in Montpellier, a sea of blue delight in the Stade de France, while the light has dwindled down on the fairy tale that is Croatia. But not to worry, they'll be back. A bitty first half. Zidane looked the most threatening with an effort straight at Ladic after a lovely backheel pass from that maverick, Djokovic. A hard-fought encounter, Bilic bustling, Dacier destroying. No surprise that this cagey semi was 0-0 at half-time. What the first half lacked, the second half certainly made up for it. As the game started like a bat out of hell, and it was only 1 minute old when the France high line was exposed, as Thuram must not have read the memo, as he played golden boy Sukur onside. As the old saying goes, he was miles onside, ref. A controlled clip pass, one touch, bang past Thuram from Sukur, 1-0 to the Croats. Was the upset on? As some bookmakers had labelled Croatia at 7-1. So Eastwoods told me. Replays had showed that Blanc was furious as Lilian Thuram played him onside. He was a sponsored walk away from the high line which led up to the goal, so all blame was on Lilian's head. But just as the game restarted, Lilian went on a gallop to redeem himself. Down the right-hand side, Boban, Croatian's captain, thought he had time to make a cup of tea. He was robbed by Thuram, who passed the ball to that maverick Djokovic, who then slotted a pass into the box, and who was there? None other than Thuram to get on the end of it. No sign of a nosebleed from Big Lilian. 0-0 in 1 minute. 1-1. The French side's character showed through thanks to the home support and a move by the French which looked to have been broken down. But Thierry Henry managed to find Thuram outside the box, who connected with a lovely crisp left foot. 2-1 to the Le Blues. Blanc was shown a red card laid on for a tackle on Bilic. The final whistle was met with home delight. Platini smiling in the crowd, if there ever was a corrupt smile. France through to the dream final to meet Brazil. The dream is alive and kicking for them to win the World Cup on home soil. Croatia heartbroken, but my God, they have filled me and many's a millions at home with hope. They have done themselves proud. It's finished here, Steve. France 2, Croatia 1.
Great stuff, Mush the Matchman. So Les Blues making it through to the final. And the big underdogs, Croatia, really making a good go of it here in the semi-final, Dan. We'll wait for Mush to come back to the studio so he can give us his little lowdown on Croatia. But while we are here, what did you make of this semi-final?
I thought it was a very good game. It's the type of game where, as a neutral, you want Croatia to take the lead, see what France are all about. Just as it looked like they were going to hang on, for all the talent and goal-scoring threat France have on the pitch, it's Lilian Thuram who pops up with a brace after being at fault for the Croatia opener. And really, I think that highlighted the spirit of that France team, where they were just all in it together, and Thuram was not going to let his mistake cost the team a chance to get to the final in their own country. And 2 great goals from Thuram as well. Lovely finishes.
Speaking of Thuram, I think it was sort of widely recognised going into this tournament that Cafu was probably the best right back on the planet at the time. Obviously, with these 2 goals, Thuram's put himself on the world stage. Is he up there in your eyes as good as Cafu?
He is definitely up there in my eyes as one of the best right backs to ever play the game. And he was a world-class centre-back as well. People would forget that. He partnered Cannavaro with Juventus and played for Barcelona as well. And Parma days with Cannavaro. And different to Cafu, of course. And Zanetti and those more attacking right backs, but an outstanding defender, and just had a lot in his locker in terms of physicality, energy, fitness, athleticism, strength, and to pop up with 2 goals in a World Cup semi-final. He must have been absolutely delighted.
Great stuff. Mush, you are back from the Stade de France. Obviously, if you had any bias in this tournament, it was for Croatia. Your second team, Mush, you must have been gutted to see them go out here.
Definitely when they got the goal at the start of the second half, I thought the fairy tale, the upset was on. That instant replay, maybe if Croatia could have just held out for 5 to 10 minutes and maybe the nerves would have popped on the France side. But I think in the end up, the French quality showed, and of all people to win them the game, it was Thuram. And that was his 2 only goals he ever scored for his nation.
Well,
what a stat that is.
Yeah.
What a stat, and what a time to get them.
Yep.
You're going to score 2, hey? Huh?
Mush, we couldn't let this episode go by without talking about your love for all things Croatian. You've done a little profile on Croatia for us. Take it away.
Bit like Dono with the Dutch, Croatia would be my second national team. Fairy tale story of this World Cup 98. This was their debut World Cup after only 6 years of breaking away from Yugoslavia and getting independence. A very unknown quantity. They did have a couple of household names in Boban, who at the time was pulling strings for AC Milan and Serie A. He was their linchpin captain. They also had Stanic, and obviously up top they had Suker and Alan Boksic. They played their own way, which was a kind of 5-3-2 formation. They won two group games, and then they got beat by the Orgies. The last 16, they beat Romania. I don't know what was coming over them, but Romania had won their group and had a yellow kit, and they all decided to dye their hair yellow. So they looked like a big set of ice lollies on the pitch. That didn't put the Croats off. They put them to the sword. I think the game that stands out for me is the quarter-final clash against the Germans. The Germans may have had an aging side, but they were European champions at the time. They had still some massive names in there, like Klinsmann and that. And Croatia just wiped the floor with them and done a complete number on them. For a small country, similar to the likes of Republic of Ireland and Wales and that, with a small population, they've excelled. They've continued that success as well too, where they got to the World Cup final there a few years back. They play a lovely brand of football. They've created some beautiful players, and for that reason, they are my second adopted nation. They captured my mind and my heart, and that's why I've got a soft touch for Croatia in my heart. So that's why they're my second team, Steve.
And just like Dan has made love to Janino and to Bergkamp on the pod, Mush has now made love to the entire Croatian squad. Coming up, we will discuss The Ronaldo incident for the final. He was on the team sheet. He was off the team sheet. Edmundo was raging. And we discussed the excellent French winning team coming up after this.
Big Brucey's bedtime bath, nice and warm, full of suds, a scented candle, a rubber duck. In the bath, Brucey, don't give up dreams of passes to be. Dreams of passes to be.
Okay, Dan, I've got the story ready. Can you just check that Brucey's all ready?
Brucey, get into that bath. I've been spent the last half an hour running it for you, for God's sake. You're running about there with a towel on. Get in there. The Red Ox is ready. Your ducky's ready. The sponge is there. And I even got you a back scrubber this week. Now make sure and get nice and clean, because tomorrow you have an early flight to Switzerland where you're meeting Sepp Blatter. Don't forget your wallet, Brucey.
Okay, Brucey. This week's story is a World Cup inspired story from your friend Paul Gascoigne's book, Gazza, My Story. 28 players were taken out to La Manga, from which Hoddle would need to select his final squad of 22 for the World Cup. I was pleased, naturally, but not surprised, to be told I was on my way to Spain. Given my form for England, everyone expected me to be picked. It was all light-hearted at first, a bit of training, a bit of fun. We had karaoke one evening, and I got drunk, but so did several others. Dave Seaman took me to my room and tucked me in while the others carried on drinking. At least 8 of them were still up at 4 a.m. The next day, we were left to play golf, swim, or just hang around the pool. It was then that I heard that Hoddle was calling in every player one by one at a set time to tell them who would be in the final 22. This is stupid, I thought. He's treating us like school kids. The idea of keeping us all sitting around doing nothing for several hours, waiting for an appointment, was petty. The more I thought about it, the more I thought, I'm not having this. I don't do waiting. I wasn't drunk, not at all. I might have had a couple of beers earlier that morning on the golf course, but I certainly wasn't drunk. Perhaps a bit hungover from the night before, but that was all. I was just so annoyed and irritated. I barged into a room where Ray Clements, Glenn Roeder and John Gorman, the England coaches, were sitting. I glared at all of them, daring them to tell me whether I was in, to give me some sort of clue. I could see in Glenn Roeder's eyes what Hoddle had decided. There might even have been a tear there. It was clear to me that they all knew the score. I couldn't control myself any longer. I burst straight into Hoddle's room, where he was talking to Phil Neville, and I went ballistic. What the hell are you doing? You know what this means to me. Let me explain, Hoddle began. I don't want to hear your explanations. I don't care what your reasons are. You know what you're doing to me. I went over to his wardrobe and I kicked in the door. Then I overturned his table, smashing a pottery vase and sending it crashing to the floor. In the process, I managed to cut my leg. So now there was blood all over the place as well. I didn't attempt to hit Hoddle, though I would have liked to. I suppose, deep down, I still respected him as a player, if not as a manager. Perhaps I also had an inbuilt respect for the position of manager, if not for the man in it. I didn't lay a finger on him, but I was in a complete fury. It wasn't long before that he had led me to believe I would be in the final 22, telling the world that we had not seen the best of Gazza yet. But now I didn't want to hear any of his rubbish. I was hell-bent on trashing the whole room and not listening to one word he was saying. Gazza, just calm down. I'll tell you why I had to do it. Just shut up. The thing is, Gazza, your head isn't right. I got you to France. I saved your skin, your job, and now look what you're doing to me. I was about to start smashing all his windows when David Seaman and Paul Ince burst in and managed to restrain me. Then they called for the doctor, who gave me a Valium tablet to quiet me down. I was taken to my room. All I wanted now was to leave La Manga at once and never see Hoddle again. Walter Smith's words echoed in my mind. Hoddle will want to make a name for himself.
Okay, Brucey, Did you enjoy that? Great stuff.
Good night, Brucey. Sleep tight. And don't let Gary Pallister bite.
So we're now at the final. This one was between France and Brazil. At the time, Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, had the hopes of the nation on his back. And I suppose for any younger listeners, it is sort of the same. And in fact, it's exactly the same as Messi missing for Argentina in the final, or Ronaldo, Portuguese Ronaldo, missing for Portugal in the final. He was a phenomenon, and something happened to Ronaldo during that afternoon in France. Nearly 23 years later, we still don't actually know what went down. Mush has tried to do a bit of investigating. He's got his detective hat on. There's nobody better to investigate a conspiracy. What happened to Ronaldo?
One of the biggest mysteries in world football is Ronaldo and World Cup 98. The stage is set. We've got France, the hosts, the best team in Europe in the final versus Brazil, probably the best team in the world and the holders of the World Cup. Ronaldo, the poster boy. So he's went for a lie down after lunch and he's woke up and he's been surrounded by the team doctors and players. Supposedly, Roberto Carlos had witnessed him taking a fit. Later on, it's described as a convulsion. This left Ronaldo feeling tired and he just wanted a cat nap. But he was told then that he would not start the final. But Big Ron wanted a second opinion. So medical exams gave Ronaldo the green light as nothing abnormal had showed up on the scans. So Ronaldo goes to the Brazil manager at the stadium. I'm fine. I want to play. And at that point, he's no option, but he has to start Ronaldo. The knock-on effect from this is there's a split in the camp between Dunga, who's on Ronaldo's side, and Leonardo, who's anti-Ronaldo. Just bear that in mind. The squad didn't know what was going on. A few players said that this was a major reason why they underperformed in the final and lost the final. He's initially put on the team sheet, and then he's scribbled off, and Abundo's on the team sheet. And then Amundo, his name's stroken off, and Ronaldo's back on it. So Ronaldo starts the final. Ronaldo and Brazil don't show up in the day, and take nothing away from the brilliant French side, Zidane at the helm. Reportedly, a huge power behind Ronaldo starting was Nike. They had just agreed a 160 million sponsorship deal with the Brazilian national team in 1996. They followed Ronaldo and Brazil round like they were a part of the coaching team. With them being the key sponsors and Ronaldo, he was massive to their merchandising endorsements. They said Ronaldo had to play no matter what. Then there was theories too that he had a nervous breakdown. The Brazilian medic claimed he suffered from depression and had a breakdown during the tournament. He'd shown signs of mental fatigue, supposedly smashing a bike against a wall a week before the final. Roberto Carlos, who he used to share a room with, caught him sobbing. This is the one for me, the FIFA conspiracy. Brazil sold the World Cup to FIFA for $23 million. The idea was that this would allow France to win the World Cup. Please, new FIFA president, Sepp Blatter, a man who I wouldn't trust to leave my bin out if I was on holiday. FIFA then promised Brazil a path to the World Cup glory in 2002, a more favourable draw for them, and also Brazil would get to host a World Cup in the next 10 years. Hang on a second, did those two things not happen? There's a mad theory regarding Ronaldo. Was he poisoned? Which I think is a crazy theory. But to this day, the full details of Ronaldo in the 98 World Cup final remain unclear and a mystery that Quincy and Taggart put together couldn't work out. The only man knows is Ronaldo. Still, a player of his caliber got another chance at the greatest stage of all in 2002 to win the World Cup. Personally, for me, he's the best striker that I've ever seen. Like leading up to the tournament, he bagged 34 goals in his debut season for Inter Milan.
Dan, I'm going to bring you in on this one here. You are known to be a fan of the dark arts. Is there dark arts at play here?
In regards to Ronaldo, no, I don't think there is dark arts at play. Personally, I believe that Brazil as a nation had put in a lot of pressure on Ronaldo and expectation. And I think he was secretly carrying a lot of injuries already. He had had knee problems since his days at PSV Eindhoven. And I personally just think he's carried a knee injury into the World Cup. And as the World Cups went along, it has become more strained. And as Brazil have got closer to the final, the pressure has been heaped on him. I believe there's something with Nike, and he had to play. I also believe that he really wanted to play. And I also believe he wasn't fit to play in the final. I believe he may have suffered some sort of breakdown mentally and emotionally as well due to those pressures, as his very good friend Roberto Carlos has touched on. So that is my thoughts on it. I thought he's such a young man at the time as well still.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's running about on one leg and he's the best player in the world. Like, you know, unbelievable footballer. And that is my thoughts on it. Obviously, years later, it would come out about Platini and that. But I can't take anything away from both groups of players because I don't think the Brazil or France players would have known anything about what was going on behind the scenes. Those 46 players across the two squads, to my mind, are just trying to win a World Cup.
There is an alternative theory here, lads. I know that the Brazil squad, a few of the members have said because Ronaldo wasn't fit to play, that is the reason that they lost that final. There is an alternative theory that this Brazil team just wasn't good enough to beat France. They're an aging team. They've had to bring Dunga basically out of retirement to have some sort of defensive shape and unit. They've been very, very lucky at stages in the tournament. You know, Norway beat them in the group stages. They struggled against European opposition, even with Scotland. Does it really matter if Ronaldo's 100% fit or not here?
I don't think they would have beat France, no. I don't think they would have beat that France team. No way. Everything you've said there, Stephen, about their defensive and bringing Dunga out of retirement. He played in China at the time, you know. We'll talk about France, I'm sure, in a couple of minutes, but I personally don't think they would have beat France. I think France had a great blend in their squad and they were ready for that final. Those players, there was a lot going on in France as a country at that time, and those players had worked hard to get to that final, and I don't think they were going to be denied. Might not have kept a clean sheet, but I don't think the Brazil back four would have been able to stop France either.
So it seems like a natural stage, lads, now to move on to the great French World Cup winning team. Dan, you had a look at what the French squad consisted of and their journey through France 98.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. It was a pleasure to look back at this team who would go on to become a double winning team in international terms. And they just had a beautiful blend of youth and experience in the squad. They made a decision after failing to qualify for USA 94 that they're going to have to change things up and go for youth and completely change the squad around. Euro 96, they didn't bring Cantona or Ginola, back in Yorkev and Zidane as their main men. They had strengths and depths. As I said, a blend of youth and experience, quality all over the pitch. You know, I talk about the youth there: Thierry Henry, David Trezeguet, Patrick Vieira, Corin Bou, Robert Pires, all in the squad there. Lizarazu as well was still a very young man. The experienced players, and these are the guys I think that get you over the line in these tournaments: Didier Deschamps, Manu Petit, Yorkev, Desailly, Blanc, Barthez, Thuram, all household names and would go on to become, if they weren't already, world-class experienced footballers and winners. So that France squad was ready to win a World Cup. They were ready to do something. They had a really, really good tournament. They 3 from 3 in the group stages. They beat South Africa and Saudi Arabia convincingly 3-0 and 4-0. And then their final group game, they beat a very good Denmark team who gave Brazil a run for their money in the quarterfinals 2-1, set themselves up for their last 16 tie against a decent Paraguay team, taking them all the way to golden goal extra time. Laurent Blanc scoring a volley to take France through in golden goal extra time. And just, if you remember the golden goal back then, the goal scored, the game's over. It's, you know, mad scenes, 11 players celebrating, 11 players on their knees. Golden goal did create a bit of a buzz.
But there was also this sort of moment where it's like they've scored the golden goal and they're looking around going, is it over? It is. Oh, it is over.
And it's Blanc, you know, the sweeper up from the back. And Blanc was a Blanc was a brilliant footballer. Partial to a bit of a dribble and a goal. Their quarter-final with Italy was by far their toughest test. I know they go 1-0 down to Croatia in the semi-final, but they were up against a serious Italy team. Cannavaro, Maldini, Nesta, Baggio, Di Biagio, Christian Vieri, Albertini. 0-0 after 120 minutes, probably no surprise.
It could have been 0-0 after 240 minutes as well.
It could have been 0-0 after 2 weeks. And it goes all the way to penalties, with France squeezing through 4-3. Lizarazu missing a spot kick for France, but 2 missed penalties on the Italy side, with Barthez denying Albertini, and Luigi Di Biagio, the unfortunate man, crashing the crossbar. Semi-final, as Ellie's touched on, in the match of the week, beating France 2-1, and then the final itself. They taken it. They ran the final from start to finish. They dominated the final. Zinedine Zidane scoring 2 fantastic headers, setting him up for the World Player of the Year award, and him really, the world knew about him, but fans all over the world might not have known about him. All the leading clubs and managers knew about Zidane, but he officially landed on the world stage and scored 2 brilliant headers. And then up pops Manu Petit in stoppage time to finish off a fantastic year for him with his beautiful ponytail, winning the double for Arsenal, and then strolling down the field in stoppage time to finish off a beaten and battered and bruised Brazil team to slot past Taffarel.
I would love to know what Petit did after that World Cup in the summer, after winning the double and then winning the World Cup.
I hope he just went on the rip for 2 weeks. I doubt he did. He probably went back and trained.
His first day back at Arsenal training must have been the biggest come down on the planet.
Well, I hope he gave it the rest of the Arsenal squad who might have met along the way at the World Cup and beat. And it just, to go back to France, the squad was brilliant. They suffered suspensions and everything during the tournament. Dessy and Blanc missing the semi-final or final, respectively. And talk about the experience, and to be experienced winners takes you to another level. I was reading about Laurent Blanc and what he says on winning France 98. And he said it was hard work, joy, and victory. The 23 players come together. They work hard for each other as individuals in a team. From that, they get the victories that they need. And then that results in the joy of winning a World Cup for their country and bringing a country back together. Just to touch on France politically at the time, there was a lot going on in regards to racism, and those players, all from different backgrounds, Thuram, Blanc, Deschamps, Desailly, Yorkeyev, Zidane, Henry, Trezeguet, Perez, Lizarazu, Barthez, all from different backgrounds, upbringings across France. And to see them win it, they were really going to go on to much bigger things down the line for their clubs and their countries. And France 98 galvanised them. And they're just such a brilliant team to look back on and enjoy.
Petit. Zidane! Lift off for France! And the calmest man amidst the clamour is the scorer himself. Jokayev. Zidane! Lightning has struck twice. 2 corners, 2 Zidane headers. Double trouble for Brazil.
So as the summer came to a close, France 98 was over, but it was just the start for some players. Some careers took off afterwards after one good game, and some people deserved a move, others probably didn't. We'll take a look back now at the top transfers after World Cup 98.
Thank you, Stephen. Transfers after World Cup 98. My top 5 are Dietmar Hamann, moving from Bayern Munich to Newcastle United for 5.5 million. What a shrewd bit of business that was by Newcastle United. Dini would only spend a year there, though, after being so impressive that Liverpool came knocking for him, and we all know what he achieved there. Brilliant signing and a great player to have in the Premier League. In at number 4 is Ariel Ortega. Argentina star, and who was currently at Valencia. He made the big move to the money league at the time, Serie A, where he joined Sampdoria for £8 million. A bargain for Sampdoria. He would later move on to Parma and help them win the UEFA Cup. Then at number 3, it's Dutch number 9, Patrick Kluivert, who had a tough season at AC Milan 97-98. After an impressive World Cup with Holland, Barcelona came knocking and snapped him up for the bargain price of £8.75 million. Not even 9 million. Can you believe it? What a signing he turned out to be for Barcelona. He also turned down Arsenal and Manchester United that summer. In at number 2, it's Chilean hitman Marcelo Salas, who moves from River Plate to Lazio for £20 million. He would help Lazio win the Scudetto and the Cup Winners' Cup, as well as defeating treble-winning Manchester United in the Super Cup before moving on to Juventus and helping them also win Serie A, leading the line with Del Piero and David Trezeguet. Salas was a ruthless striker, and although £20 million, his club's more than got his money's worth there. And number 1, the best bit of business after France 98, it's Jaap Stam, who moves from PSV Eindhoven to Manchester United for £10.6 million, becoming the most expensive centre-half in history. Looking back at that, what a bargain. Not only did he impress at Manchester United, but they would go on to win the treble in 1998-1999. Sir Alex Ferguson would later go on and say it was his biggest regret ever in his career, letting Jaap Stam move to Lazio in 2001. Those are my 5 best bits of business.
Big Jaap Stam coming in at number 1 there. Thanks for that, Dan. Much like Euro 96 when Karol Baborski got his big move after a one tournament wonder and became a massive flop. Mush, you had a look at some other floppies for us. Who flopped after the World Cup?
Yes, Stephen. At number 5 is Christian Daly. The Scottish international left relegated Derby to join Blackburn Rovers for £7 million. What a season, as he must have brought the blight to Blackburn as they then got relegated and he suffered 2 relegations back to back. He couldn't get a settled position or find any sort of form and only staggered 17 appearances. Number 4, Thierry Henry. 11.25 million from Monaco to Juventus. A wide forward at the time and a young man, Juventus played him as a winger and even as a wing back. He struggled to find form at the Italian Giants and only got 16 appearances and 3 goals in a very ineffective first season. But Arsene Wenger, a man who couldn't zip up his coat, saved Henry by signing him for Arsenal. Hey Bobby, what's French for va-va-voom? Number 3, Robert Jonet from Real Betis to Real Madrid via Coventry. Now this one's a bit mixed up. Jonet was the fullback for the 32-year Croatia side. A few teams were sniffing around, but none other than Coventry manager Wee Gordon Strachan purchased him for £2.6 million. No sooner had he arrived at Coventry, he had barely time to unpack his leather suitcase and find a barber to get his short back inside. As a week later, Real Madrid champions rung Strachan and said, "How much do you want for him?" And they accepted a £3.4 million deal. Strachan was laughing as he had dodged a bullet and made a profit on a player who ended up flopping at Madrid. Number 2, Stefan Gouron from Auxerre to Newcastle. World Cup winner. The pointless answer in a quiz if you were to name players in the France winning World Cup squad. After a cracking season at Auxerre where he banged in loads of goals and made the France team rather than Nicolas Anelka, he was signed by the Geordies. He now sells swimming pools for a living. And number 1, Denilson to Real Betis from Sao Paulo for £21 million. At the time, this is a lot of money for a young winger. Only 2 goals in his first season at Real Betis as he struggled to hold down a regular starting berth, and he got found out by Spanish teams as they doubled up on him. The following season, you think it would get much better for him? No, Real Betis were relegated, and Sao Paulo, have you got a receipt? Because we want our money back. That concludes my top 5 worst bits of business, Steve.
Some serious flops in there, Mush. Thank you very much for that. So now it's time to pick our next player in our Simpsons lookalike 11. Already we have a very nice little midfield of Gilles Grimandi and David Silva, otherwise known as Jacques the Bubbler, and Dr. Nick Riviera. This week, it's Simpsons fan Mush the Match Man to have his pick. Mush, who have you got for us, and where are they slotting into this 11?
Yes, Stephen, my pick is the Yellow Weasel. You're probably asking, who the hell is the Yellow Weasel? Well, he was one of Nelson Muntz's cronies, along with the Black Weasel, in season 1 of The Simpsons. Now, they weren't brothers, the Weasels, but Yellow Weasel, he was a bully. He was a tough kid, full of aggression, very similar to the player. This player was a bully on the pitch, full of tenacity, had a sour face on him. He had a great career, played for Atletico Madrid and Inter Milan. My lookalike of the week is none other than Diego Simeone.
He is an absolute dead ringer for the Yellow Weasel. As Mush says, if you don't know who the Yellow Weasel is, Dan will pop it up on the old Twitter page. I mean, the hairdo is just 100% Diego Simeone's hairdo, is it not, Dan?
It definitely is. He'd remind you of Simeone too, the scowls of him there, but cracking lookalike, and he goes straight into the middle of the park in our team.
It's a very defensive looking side now with Simeone and Grimandi in there. Dan, what are you thinking? 4-2-4?
It's looking that way, Stephen, yeah. Gung ho.
Great stuff. So going straight into the team, it's the Yellow Weasel, otherwise known as Diego Simeone. Okay, that's it for the pod this week, folks. We hope you've enjoyed our FIFA World Cup 90th special. Next week, we will be back to normal, reviewing a week from football history. We'll review some games, we'll have some analysis, some insights. Our balls against the wall quiz will be back. Dan will be picking his favourite transfers. Mush will have another Madman of the Week. Brucey will still be splashing about in his bath. All that, and it's back to Dan for his Simpsons lookalike 11 pick. So playing us out this week is a brilliant theme song from the 1998 World Cup. Unfortunately, for rights reasons, we can only play you a small clip, but I do encourage you to go and download it from wherever you download music. This is Jamaica United, Rise Up, the Reggae Boys theme song for the 1998 World Cup, featuring Toots Hibbert, Diana King, Ziggy Marley, and Maxi Priest. So it's good night from me, and it's good night from Dan. Say good night, Dan.
Good night, Dan.
And it's good night from Mush the Matchman. Say good night, Mush.
Good night, Mush.
See you next week.
Won't you rise up, Jamaica? Stand up, Jamaicans, with love and justice for all. Let us build our nation from the foundation of love. I say, rise up, Jamaicans. Stand up and take a stand. We are all God's people. We should live as one.